What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin review. We are catching up with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is the latest MCU Disney Plus show. We're at the midway point. It's 6 episodes in this season. We're after episode 3 aired this past Friday, and there's a lot to cover over it, so we're going to get to it right now. Before we get into the video, of course, I appreciate you guys helping out this channel and helping more people discover this side of the channel, the entertainment news stuff. So if you enjoy these videos, hit that like button below, share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you talk about Marvel, TV shows, Disney Plus, or comic book stuff, or anything like that. I definitely appreciate it. So this show is kind of like WandaVision. It takes a couple episodes for it to kind of get moving, and it's because it takes episodes 1 and 2 to kind of establish the world where we are and get you in that mind frame of the world. And even though it is a little bit slow, again, like WandaVision was kind of slow for a lot of people in the first couple episodes, by the time you hit the midway point of the season, things start ramping up, and it definitely is true about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, Falcon's whole deal, there's a lot of stuff going on with Falcon's backstory. We find out what happened after Cap gave him the shield. He gave it back to the U.S. government, which was a huge mistake because instead of putting it in the Smithsonian, they wind up creating a new Captain America out of that. And we're going to talk about that. U.S. Agent is the reference to the comic book character for this new Captain America. So Sam's also got issues with his sister Sarah. They have the what's left over to them from their family. Of course, Sam got snapped. His sister did not. So Sam was away for 5 years and has come back, and his sister's having problems. We find out some interesting stuff about, Sam being an Avenger, but the bank's not helping him out. Police kind of treating him like crap before they know he's an Avenger because he's a black man. I'm going to mention something about that too at the end of this video. Bucky, on the other hand, he's dealing with, being back too because he got snapped as well. And after all the Thanos stuff is over, and Steve is gone, he's been kind of hanging out in I guess it's an Asian part of town. He had a date, which was very entertaining to see, but then we found out that he's befriended this older Asian man because when he was the Winter Soldier, he killed the guy's grandson. So that's a bit awkward, and he's now trying to go and do penance for it. We find out later on he's got the book that Steve had wrote way back in Captain America, Winter Soldier. This is why I love Marvel. They call back stuff from like years and years ago. You remember that book in Winter Soldier where Sam had given Steve this book to write down all these things that had happened since Steve had been in the ice. Soul Man, the different songs, Rocky, movies, and stuff like that Steve had to check out to catch up. Well, Bucky has the same book, but Bucky's got all these names of people that he had wronged. There are a couple of comic book Easter eggs in there. There are a couple that are just names that they threw in. But that is what Bucky's been doing. He's sleeping on the floor. He's got the psychologist who's actually a bit of comic relief, dealing with Bucky and his stoicness, but she's trying to get him to kind of acclimate to real life because he's got an apartment with no furniture. He sleeps on the floor. He just is not adjusted. And you can imagine he's spent 80 years being a weapon of destruction and living way longer than he should have, and then the world disappeared, he disappeared, then he came back, Steve's gone. It's like he's screwed up in the head. But this leads to a couple comedy scenes, and the comedy scenes with some of them land, some of them don't. With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they go a little bit too far for it sometimes. But in episode 2, the psychologist scene where they had to face each other, that was pretty funny. Some of the stuff in episode 3 was definitely hilarious. We're going to talk about episode 3 as its own thing, but I do like the interaction between these two characters. As the main characters of the series, we see where they're both coming from, and then we get things going a little bit awry. But I like the way they built these two characters up and established them and where they were after the events of Endgame. And now we're moving towards the conflict of this show, which has been slowly building throughout the entire series. This is a group called the Flag Smashers. They're somewhat of a terrorist group. Now, the way they're presenting them in the show, they're an open borders group. I'm going to talk about politics a lot in this because there's a lot of politics in the show. But given what Disney's political leanings are, an open borders group, they're not really the bad guys, and they're going to be portrayed as that. They're going to be portrayed as that you think they're the bad guys, but they're really not, because that's kind of the game we're playing these days in politics. That bad people, the bad guys really aren't the bad guys. They're really the good guys, and you should like what they do. And these are really we've been doing this forever. But it's the Flag Smashers really are not the villains of the episode of the series. You can kind of tell that. But they are super soldiers, which is what gets the attention of a lot of people. And the new Captain America, who was brought in, we call him a U.S. agent, again, it's the reference from the comic book. There's this guy, he's got problems. I've seen him in stuff before. I think he was in the episode of Black Mirror or something like that. But this guy, he's got his own buddy, so it's kind of a funny contrast between him and his buddy and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And Falcon and Winter Soldier are not feeling this guy. You know, they're like, you're not Steve. Don't try to be Steve. And it seems like from the beginning, U.S. agent is what I'm going to call him. He's trying to, like, fulfill the shoes, but you can't fill Steve Rogers' shoes. And he's not the same kind of guy. He is actually the kind of guy that Tommy Lee Jones's character way back in the original Captain America movie would have picked, which was the wrong pick. Remember, Steve was a scrawny little kid who was humble and had a big heart, and he got the super soldier serum and became Captain America and got all those powers. This guy already had that and apparently has some rage issues. I don't think that they picked him the way that they picked Steve, and I think that's going to come out because remember, Red Skull also had the superhero serum. Try saying that 5 times real fast. And what they basically said in those movies was whatever is already there will be amplified, which is why with Steve had kindness and compassion and bravery, and it amplified it. Well, if this guy's got a lot of rage issues, which it seems that it does, especially in episode 3 when he's trying to track down the Flag Smashers at this one bar, and the bartender's like, I'm not telling you anything. I'm going to spit in your face. And the guy was just, you could tell he just really wanted to cave this guy's head, and he knew he could, but he's holding back because he's still cognizant that he's Captain America, supposed to be, and he doesn't want to do it. Then we get into, after all these chases and fights and everything else and comedy spots, essentially U.S. agent tells Bucky and Winter Soldier to stay the hell out of his way. Steve wouldn't say that, as another YouTuber said, so we're moving on to other things now as they've kind of separated. They're not going to team up, and I think that's going to come to it. Those two groups are going to fight at some point in time. They find out that because this is a superhero serum thing, that there's only one guy who knows anything about that, and that is Baron Zemo, who was the villain, the antagonist, that is probably a better description of him, from Captain America Civil War. It is to be noted, a lot of people forget this, until that point in the MCU, nobody had beaten the Avengers, and Baron Zemo, before Thanos, Baron Zemo was the first guy to beat the Avengers, because he did succeed. He split up the Avengers, and he achieved what he wanted to do. Zemo is in prison in Germany. They do this clever thing where they break him out after Bucky goes and talks to him, and Bucky kind of is explaining to Falcon that this plan of breaking him out as if he hasn't done it, but meanwhile we see in these cutaways that Zemo's escaping. It's kind of a funny scene, and then Zemo just shows up at the garage, and they're like, and Falcon's like, where are we? They're at Zemo's garage, and this is the first time that they acknowledge the fact that Zemo is a baron. He was royalty in Sokovia, so he actually has all this money. And Falcon's like, what, you were rich all this time? He's like, I was royalty in my country before you destroyed my country. So Zemo is, I don't know why that was a Russian accent, but Zemo has a lot of money. He's got his own butler, and they're on the plane, and there's a lot of, now, when Zemo gets into the show, the three of them have this interesting dynamic, and I really love the way that Zemo and Falcon and Bucky all play off of each other. So they have to go to Madripoor, which is a big X-Men Easter egg here, by the way, because Madripoor was mostly in the comic books a X-Men thing. So again, they revamped it a little bit here for the MCU, where it's not quite the same place that it was there. They also reference another enemy from the X-Men comics, because Baron Zemo has Bucky playing as he stole the Winter Soldier. He's Baron Zemo, but Falcon has to play this character who's actually like a smiling, I think it's smiling jackal or smiling type, something like that. It was actually a character from an enemy from the X-Men comic book series. So again, more X-Men references there. And then we get into some more references. Again, I'm going to talk about the America stuff, the political stuff a little bit later, but they go there, they manage to track down another character from the comic books, which is lightly casted as a female here. They're looking for the power broker. They're trying to, or they're not looking for the power broker. They're looking for anybody who has information on where this new superhero, super soldier serum came from. They go to an information person. They get shot by a sniper. Then we get Sharon Carter showing up, and this is when the show really starts amping up because she's in there, and apparently she's different than what she was when we last saw her in the Avengers movie. Apparently she didn't get a pardon like everybody else after the whole Thanos thing, and she's been on the run ever since Civil War, and because I wonder, she was one of those mysteries, like what happened to her? Because like Steve wound up with Peggy again, so Steve had kissed her, which is kind of weird now, that scene in Civil War where Steve kissed her, so anyway, so she's back now, and she's kind of, anti-American. Dad, it's a superhero thing, it's all a bunch of BS. I'm selling, real art in the black market and living in, and yeah, she's just kind of gone a little bit rogue, because the country let her down. So, and this isn't the first thing we see of that in the show. They have a whole action scene, and then we're led on to find the actual doctor, because they find the doctor who actually created or improved the superhero, the super soldier serum. Got a lot of exposition dumps here, a lot of little hints and nods towards what was going on way back to, the Incredible Hulk movie, with where the serum came from, the history of the CIA using that serum. A whole lot of stuff in here. It ties into Thunderbolt Ross and David Banner and Bruce Banner. It ties into a whole bunch of stuff. And Isaiah, who was the first black super soldier that they kind of screwed over. They really screwed over and just ruined that dude's life, even though he fought for the country and even fought Bucky and took Bucky's arm off, but they screwed him over. So all of that kind of, you started finding out the pieces of this puzzle kind of coming together, because the only reason Zemo's working with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is because they have a common enemy. Remember, Zemo does not like super powered people. He killed all those other super soldiers at the end of Civil War that were in those tanks. He does not like the idea that there's this new group of super soldiers called the Flag Smashers. He don't care what they want. He wants to take them out too. Where we end up with at the end of episode 3, however, is that there are these little beads that Winter Soldier sees as they're going off into their next mission. And at first I didn't know, and then as soon as I figured out, I remember where I saw those beads from. We get the shot of one of the warriors from Wakanda who was there, and they have been bringing this up throughout the show, that Falcon kept telling Bucky, he's like, Zemo killed their king. Wakanda ain't gonna forget about that. They're gonna come after him. They're gonna find out that Zemo's out, and they're going to come after him. If U.S. Agent found out about it, Wakanda knows about it, and now you're gonna have Wakanda on your ass. And sure enough, the big surprise at the end of the episode, we do have one of the warriors coming in, and Bucky knew they were tracking them, and now Bucky's kind of got to explain, like, how do you explain this? So, yeah, you guys helped me with my crazy stuff in my head, and fixed my arm, and gave me a place to stay, and kept me from going to jail and getting killed, and yeah, I just let out the guy that framed me for killing your old king. How do you explain that if you're Bucky? Like, how do you explain that to them? I'm sure he will. I'm sure that because obviously they're not going to kill him. So there's going to be. I'm interested in seeing how they're going to handle that. It's getting kind of complicated, but that's why I'm liking the show right now. Again, episode 3, everything has really picked up the pace, and now it's feeling like one of these espionage kind of stories, which is very much what Winter Soldier was like, and we haven't seen that in the MCU since the Winter Soldier. So this is definitely refreshing to see the espionage type of storyline being brought back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I did want to talk about the political stuff and the racial stuff in the show, because a lot of YouTubers that I've seen are avoiding the hell out of it. First off, there is a lot of and this is a warning for any of you guys who are politically sensitive, there's a lot of anti-American stuff in this movie. I mean, they're taking Sharon Carter's taking shots at the country. Baron Zemo's taking shots at the country. He dressed up Falcon as that character, and Falcon's like, man, why do I gotta dress like a pimp? And then Zemo's like, of course an American would think that it's a stylish black man is a pimp. There is reference to the police trying to go after Falcon in Baltimore, here, my hometown. Of course, there's a whole thing with the first black super soldier, and finding out that not only did Sam not know about it, and the world didn't not know about it, and this guy basically suffered for 30 years, but Bucky knew about this guy and didn't say anything to Falcon or Steve or anybody else. And Bucky's explanation, I kind of don't buy. He's like, well, I didn't want him to go through any more, Elijah to go through any more pain. And I'm just like, really? Is that really the reason? Maybe it is, but that's kind of you're going to have to give me a little bit more than that, Bucky, to explain to me why the first ever black super soldier did not get propped up the way Captain America Steve Rogers did. This guy was a hero to the country during the Korean War, and he's off in some hovel in Baltimore, just mad and bitter and angry because the country screwed him over. There's a ton of that in here. The flag smashers don't like America, of course, open borders people. So they're again, if you're politically sensitive, there's a lot of subtle stuff in this show that takes jabs at the concept of Americana and even the concept of Steve. Bucky and Falcon are arguing about it in episode 3 about the shield, and Sam says he might have thrown the shield away or buried it or something, and Bucky's like, no, the shield represents something that's important. No matter what people are doing, the shield represents something good. I don't want to bury the shield because there are people in the country who are doing terrible things and not living up to what that represents. If we don't have that representation of what that shield is supposed to be, if somebody's not carrying the image of our better selves, that's a bad thing. Whereas Falcon's perspective on it is, no, that shield is what it represents now is corrupt, and maybe we need to get rid of it. And maybe, and again, Falcon might be siding a little bit with the Flag Smashers there. That, this is a thing back in Red Skull said back in the first Captain America movie. And he was like, I've seen the future. There are no flags. There are no countries. And Steve at the time, his response was, not my future, So this is a theme. I've seen some interviews with some of the creators of the show, so it's not surprising that these themes are in the show. There are political themes, there are racial themes in there. They are an underpinning and an undercurrent of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. I do think it's kind of a disservice that I've seen a lot of people reviewing the show avoiding that topic altogether and acting like, well, that's just a reference to the comic books. No. There are real things that the show is trying to say. No matter what you feel politically about it, you need to address them because that's part of the fun of entertainment like this, is they bring up these topics and we discuss them because they're brought up in the shows. If you don't discuss them, you're kind of doing a disservice to the people that made the show, man. So I'm just saying that. I'm going to get off my soapbox about that now, but I am a bit disappointed and a bit disenchanted with some of the other reviewers I see who are decidedly avoiding the political and the racial context within Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But we've got the next episode coming up next Friday. I'm very jazzed for it. Again, it started out slow, just like WandaVision, but the last half of episode 2 and episode 3 is absolutely amazing. Zemo is stealing the show right now. We've got Sharon Carter coming back. We had this all boom, boom, boom. Who else is going to show up in this one? A lot of people think Thunderbolt Ross is going to show up, and I'm like, do we really need Thunderbolt Ross in this? But I think we're gonna see some more cameos, but I don't think it's gonna get too crazy. I think the main focus of this show is Sam's journey from where he starts in the show to taking up the shield and taking back the shield and understanding why he needs to take up the shield. And I think we're seeing the progression. Like I said, right now where he is in the show, he might have just chucked that thing in the ocean. But I think by the end of the series, he's gonna go, no, I'm gonna take this symbol up and show what it should mean. And that's the right way to go about it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it kind of looks like that's the progression of where it's going, which it actually ultimately is a good message no matter what your political stripes are. But I want to know what you guys think about this show so far. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Don't forget, too, that I got down below, for those of you who are new to my channel, I give away a lot of goodies. 30-day free trial to Amazon Prime. You can get 2 free stocks from Webull. If you sign up with my Webull affiliate account, you can get some free crypto from BlockFi. There's tons of stuff in my description, so definitely check out in the description box to see all that cool free stuff. Until next time, I will see you guys for more news, rumors, and reviews here on the Rantin Review. Have a good day.